Commander Rachel Hayes stood at the bridge window of the UES Thunderchild, watching the stars drift by. Her reflection showed tired eyes and messy brown hair. She hadn't slept well since receiving the Council's message 3 days ago. The message was simple: Earth must surrender within 1 week, or face total destruction. Commander. First Officer Tom Parker's voice broke through her thoughts. The crew is ready for your address. Hayes nodded and turned away from the window. The bridge crew watched her with worried eyes as she stepped up to the command platform. She pressed the ship-wide communication button, and her voice carried to every corner of humanity's most advanced battleship. "This is Commander Hayes speaking," she began, keeping her voice steady. "By now, you've all heard about the Council's ultimatum. They believe humans are too dangerous to remain free. They want to turn Earth into just another colony world, with humans serving as second-class citizens." She paused, letting her words sink in. The bridge was completely silent. For the past month, we tried to talk. We sent diplomats. We offered trade deals. We even offered to share some of our technology. The Council refused everything. They're scared of us, and scared people do stupid things. Through the main viewport, she could see Earth growing smaller as the Thunderchild moved toward its jump point. The blue planet looked so peaceful from up here. The Thunderchild is Earth's newest ship. Everything we learned from studying alien technology, every breakthrough our scientists made, it's all here. We're not the biggest ship in space. We're not even the most heavily armed. But we're the smartest. First Officer Parker handed her a tablet showing the latest scans of the Council's defense grid. The data confirmed what they already knew. It was the biggest defensive network ever built. Thousands of automated platforms, energy shields that could stop entire fleets, and swarms of hunter-killer drones. The Council thinks their defense grid makes them untouchable. They think that's why they can threaten Earth. They're wrong. Hayes looked around the bridge. Lieutenant Kate Foster at Tactical, her fingers dancing over the weapon controls as she ran another system check. Chief Engineer Doug Wilson at his station, monitoring the experimental drive systems he'd helped design. They were the best crew in the fleet, and they were ready. We're not going to wait for them to attack Earth. We're taking the fight to them. Not to destroy, not to conquer, but to show them that humanity won't bow down to threats. The ship's quantum engines hummed louder as they approached the jump point. In 10 minutes, they would make the leap that would take them straight to the Council's home system. Some of you have families back on Earth. Some of you are wondering if we're doing the right thing. Let me be clear. If we do nothing, the Council will come for Earth. They'll come with their fleets and their armies, and they'll try to turn our home into their newest colony. Hayes walked to the center of the bridge, where a holographic display showed their target, the massive defense grid protecting the Council's capital system. But we have something they don't expect, something they can't defend against. Because while they were building bigger guns and stronger shields, we were thinking differently. That's what humans do best. The jump countdown began. 5 minutes. They think they know what we're capable of. They think they can predict what we'll do. They're wrong. Today, we're going to show them just how wrong they are. The bridge crew straightened in their seats. This was what they had trained for. We're not going to fire the first shot. We'll give them one last chance to talk. But if they refuse, Hayes let a small smile cross her face. Well, they're about to learn why you should never back humans into a corner. The jump countdown reached 1 minute. Hayes sat in her command chair and fastened her harness. All hands, prepare for quantum jump. And remember, we're not here to start a war. We're here to prevent one. Hayes out. The stars outside stretched into lines of light as the Thunderchild's quantum drive spooled up. In 30 seconds, they would jump straight into the heart of Council space. One ship against the largest defense network ever built. Tom Parker looked over at his commander. They're not going to know what hit them, are they? Hayes shook her head. No, Tom. They're not. The quantum drive reached full power. The stars blurred, and the Thunderchild jumped, carrying humanity's message to the heart of the galaxy. The Council was about to learn a very important lesson about humans. Don't make threats unless you're ready to back them up. The Thunderchild emerged from its quantum jump into a sea of lights. Lieutenant Kate Foster's jaw dropped as she stared at her tactical display. The Council's defense grid stretched out before them, more massive than any human had seen before. "My God," she whispered. The scans didn't do it justice. Thousands of defense platforms floated in perfect geometric patterns, creating a web of death around the Council's capital system. Blue energy shields rippled between the platforms, while swarms of automated drones moved like schools of fish through space. Chief Engineer Doug Wilson whistled from his station. "Would you look at that? Must have taken them decades to build all this." Commander Hayes leaned forward in her chair, studying the main view screen. "How many platforms are we looking at, Lieutenant Foster?" Kate checked her readings. 3,247 defense platforms. Each one has enough firepower to destroy a small fleet, and that's not counting the drones or shield generators. The bridge crew fell silent. They had known the defense grid was impressive, but seeing it up close was different. It was meant to make enemies lose hope, to make them turn back. "Start the scans," Hayes ordered. "Find me that weakness we talked about." Kate's fingers flew over her console. The Thunderchild's sensors probed the massive network, looking for the flaw they had suspected existed. Every defense had a weak point. They just had to find it. "Commander," Tom Parker called out. "We're being hailed. It's the Council." Hayes nodded. "Put them on screen." The view screen flickered, showing a large chamber filled with alien representatives. In the center stood Council President Andrew Russell, a human who had chosen to side with the Council years ago. "Commander Hayes," Russell said, his voice dripping with false concern. "You're a long way from Earth. Turn back now, and we might forget this foolish gesture of defiance." Hayes smiled. "That's funny. I was about to make you the same offer." Russell's fake smile vanished. "One ship, against the greatest defense network ever built. This is suicide." "Is it?" Hayes asked. "Tell me, Andrew, did the Council ever explain to you how their precious defense grid actually works?" Behind her, Kate Foster's console beeped. She had found something. "Commander," Kate whispered excitedly. "The quantum communication network. It's just like we thought. They're using a linked system. All the platforms are connected." Doug Wilson moved to Kate's station, looking over her shoulder. His eyes widened. "Oh, that's beautiful," he said. "They made the same mistake everyone makes. They thought bigger was better." Hayes turned back to the screen. "Last chance, Andrew. Tell the Council to withdraw their ultimatum." Russell laughed. "Or what? You'll destroy our defense grid with one ship. Even if you fired every weapon you have, you couldn't take down a single sector's shields." "Who said anything about weapons?" Hayes asked quietly. She turned to Doug. "How long to modify the quantum cascade?" The engineer was already working. 10 minutes. Maybe less. It's like they built this grid specifically for us to break it." On the screen, Russell was starting to look worried. The alien council members behind him were whispering to each other. "What are you planning?" Russell demanded. Hayes ignored him. "Kate, start plotting the weakest points in their network. Doug, feed those coordinates into the cascade when you're ready." "You can't possibly think," Russell began. Hayes cut the transmission. They had their chance to talk. Now they can watch. The next 10 minutes were tense. The defense grid's drones were moving closer, but hadn't attacked yet. They were probably trying to figure out why one human ship would come here alone. "Ready," Doug finally announced. "The quantum cascade is modified. They're really not going to like this." Hayes stood up. "The Council built the biggest, most connected defense grid in history, but they forgot something important about humans." "What's that?" Tom Parker asked. "We don't think like them. They build walls. We find doors. They make chains. We make lockpicks. She turned to Doug. Start the cascade. Doug pressed a sequence of buttons. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Kate's console lit up. Signals spreading through their network. The platforms. They're losing connection with each other. On the main screen, they watched as the mighty defense grid began to fail. The linked quantum network that made it so powerful was now its biggest weakness. Platform after platform went dark as the cascade spread, like dominoes falling in space. The shield generators flickered and died. Drones stopped in their tracks, their control signals cut off. In less than 5 minutes, the greatest defense network ever built had been reduced to floating metal. Send the message, Hayes ordered. Kate nodded and transmitted the words they had prepared. The defense grid is down, but not destroyed. It can be reactivated once the Council is ready to talk as equals. The choice is yours. The bridge crew watched as panic spread through the Council fleet. The impossible had just happened, and everything was about to change. Alarms blared across the Council fleet as their mighty defense grid hung dead in space. The Thunderchild floated calmly in the middle of the chaos, a single ship that had accomplished the impossible. Council ships moving to attack positions. Kate Foster reported from her tactical station. Counting 15 heavy cruisers and 30 destroyers. They're trying to surround us. Commander Hayes watched the enemy ships on her display. They moved with perfect military precision, but she could sense their fear. These ships had always relied on the defense grid for protection. Now they had to fight alone. They're scared, Tom Parker said from his station. Look at their formation. Too tight, too careful. Wouldn't you be? Doug Wilson asked as he monitored the ship's systems. Everything they believed about their superiority just got proven wrong. A new message flashed on the main screen. Fleet Admiral Beth Cooper, another human working for the Council, appeared. Unlike Council President Russell, Cooper was a warrior. She knew what the Thunderchild had just done was no trick. Commander Hayes, Cooper said, her voice steady but her eyes showing respect. Impressive work with the defense grid, but you're still outnumbered 45-1. Hayes smiled. Numbers aren't everything, Admiral. You of all people should know that. Last chance, Cooper warned. Power down your weapons and surrender. I have a better idea, Hayes replied. She turned to Kate. Show them what else the Thunderchild can do. Target the lead cruiser's engines. Minimal power. Kate's fingers danced across her console. The Thunderchild's main weapon, quickly nicknamed the Quantum Tickler by the crew, powered up. It didn't destroy ships. It just made their technology stop working. A beam of blue light shot out, hitting the lead cruiser. Its engines sputtered and died. Then its weapons went dark. Then its artificial gravity failed. What? Cooper watched in shock as her flagship drifted helplessly. What did you do? The same thing we did to your defense grid, Hayes explained. Only on a smaller scale. Don't worry, it's temporary. Your ship will work again in about an hour. The remaining Council ships broke formation, their perfect spacing forgotten. Some began to retreat. You could have destroyed us, Cooper realized. Both times, you could have destroyed everything. Hayes nodded. But we didn't, because humanity isn't here to destroy. We're here to make a point. Doug called out from his station. Commander, picking up new ships entering the system. Lots of them. The tactical display filled with dots as more Council ships arrived. Not dozens this time. Hundreds. The Council was calling in everything they had. 523 ships, Kate reported. Her voice shook slightly. They're charging weapons. Hayes stood up from her chair. This was the moment that would decide everything. Open a channel to all ships, she ordered. When Kate nodded, Hayes spoke clearly and calmly. This is Commander Rachel Hayes of the UES Thunderchild. You've seen what one human ship can do. We disabled your defense grid without destroying it. We disabled your flagship without harming its crew. We could have brought destruction, but we chose not to. The enemy ships slowed their approach. Humanity doesn't want war. We never did. But if you force us to fight, we will. And now you know what we can do with just one ship. Tom Parker checked his readings. Some of the ships are powering down their weapons. Hayes continued. Earth extends its hand in friendship, not surrender. We offer cooperation, not submission. The choice is yours, but choose carefully, because the next time we meet, we might bring more than one ship. The bridge crew held their breath as they waited for a response. Finally, Admiral Cooper's voice came through, now speaking from a different ship. This is Fleet Admiral Cooper to all Council ships. Stand down. I repeat, stand down. The Council ships began powering down their weapons. Some started to retreat. The mighty armada that had arrived to destroy one human ship was pulling back. A wise choice, Hayes said softly. As the Council fleet withdrew, leaving a respectful distance between them and the Thunderchild, Tom Parker turned to his commander. Think they got the message? He asked with a small smile. Hayes looked at the disable defense grid, the powerless flagship, and the retreating Council ships. Oh yes, she said. I think they got it loud and clear. The Thunderchild had done more than defeat the Council's defenses. It had changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever, and it had done it without firing a single destructive shot. Council President Andrew Russell paced the Grand Council chamber, his face red with anger and fear. Around him, representatives from 30 alien species argued loudly. The mighty Council, which had ruled the galaxy for centuries, was falling into chaos. How? A blue-skinned council member shouted. How did one human ship disable our entire defense network? You told us the grid was perfect. Another member yelled at Russell. You said humans were primitive. Russell wiped sweat from his forehead. The massive screens in the chamber showed the Thunderchild, still floating calmly where their defense grid used to be active. The human ship looked so small, yet it had just changed everything. If you'd all just calm down, Russell started to say. But no one was listening to him anymore. The chamber doors burst open. Fleet Admiral Beth Cooper strode in, still wearing her command uniform. Unlike Russell's panic, she showed only grim acceptance. The human ship could have destroyed us all, Cooper announced to the chamber. Instead, they chose to show mercy. They proved their power without taking a single life. The room fell silent. The council members knew Cooper was one of their best military leaders. If she was saying this, they had to listen. Impossible. Russell tried one last time. They must have used some trick. Some. Shut up, Andrew. Cooper cut him off. Your lies got us into this mess. The humans tried to talk peace for a month while you pushed for war. Now look what happened. On the screens, they could see council ships still backing away from the Thunderchild. Even with hundreds of warships present, none dared to attack. The Relkin Empire withdraws from this council, announced one of the older members suddenly. The green-scaled alien stood tall. We will seek separate peace with Earth. The Relkin cannot, Russell began, but another member stood up. The Brel Collective also withdraws, the crystal-based being chimed. We too will seek Earth's friendship. One by one, council members began to stand. Species that had been part of the council for generations were breaking away. They had seen the future, and it didn't include following old leaders who had just been proven wrong. Admiral Cooper watched with a small smile. She had known this would happen. The council's power had always been built on fear. Fear of their mighty defense grid, fear of their massive fleets. The Thunderchild had broken that fear in less than an hour. We should have listened, she said quietly to the panicking Russell. When I first joined the council fleet, I tried to tell you about humans, how they think differently, how they solve problems in ways no one expects. Russell slumped in his chair as more council members announced their withdrawal. They're just primitives, he whispered, still clinging to his old beliefs. They only reached space a century ago. And look what they did in that century, Cooper replied. While we built bigger weapons, They built smarter ones. While we made walls, they found ways through them. That's what humans do. They adapt. They think creatively. They surprise you. A new message flashed on the main screens. Commander Hayes of the Thunderchild was broadcasting again. The defense grid's control systems have been fully restored to Council control, Hayes announced. Consider this a gesture of good faith. Earth remains ready to talk whenever you are prepared to treat us as equals. The Council chamber erupted again, but this time with different energy. Members were rushing to be the first to establish contact with Earth, to secure their own deals before others could. Admiral Cooper turned to leave the chamber. She had preparations to make. The galaxy was about to change dramatically. "Where are you going?" Russell called after her. "To draft my resignation," she replied. "I'm going home to Earth. The Council doesn't need me anymore. And honestly, I don't think there will be much of a Council left by tomorrow." As she walked out, Cooper heard the continuing chaos behind her. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now talking about working together, all because they feared being left behind in the new order that was coming. One human ship had done all this. One ship had broken the Council's power without firing a single destructive shot. And Cooper knew this was just the beginning. The age of the Council was over. The age of humanity had begun. And somehow, Cooper thought, the galaxy would be better for it. Commander Hayes stood at her station on the Thunderchild's bridge, watching the Council fleet scatter like startled birds. Security Chief Ryan Morris's voice cut through the quiet bridge. "Commander, you need to see this," Morris said, his eyes fixed on his security feeds. "I'm picking up massive ship movements across the entire system, but they're not military vessels." Hayes moved to his station, and her eyes widened. Hundreds of civilian ships were powering up and leaving their ports. Luxury cruisers, cargo ships, personal yachts. Everything that could fly was taking off. "They think we're going to attack," Tom Parker realized. "They're running from us." Hayes shook her head. This wasn't what they wanted. Fear wasn't their goal. "Lieutenant Foster," she called out, "prepare to broadcast on all frequencies. Let's show them what humans are really about." Kate nodded and opened all channels. The main screen split into dozens of windows, showing frightened alien faces on various ships. Hayes took a deep breath and began to speak. "This is Commander Hayes of the Earth ship Thunderchild. To all civilian vessels, please remain calm. Return to your homes and families. We are not here to harm anyone." She paused, letting her words sink in. Some of the ships had already stopped their panicked flight. "Today, we showed that we could disable the Council's defenses. We proved that humanity cannot be bullied or threatened. But that's not why we're here." Doug Wilson, working at his engineering station, pulled up an image on a secondary screen. It showed the disabled defense grid starting to power back up, but not in attack mode. "Look at your defense grid," Hayes continued. "We're restoring it, not destroying it. Look at your ships. We disabled them temporarily, not permanently. We could have chosen destruction. Instead, we chose conversation." The civilian ships were turning back now. On some of the video feeds, aliens were gathering around their screens, listening. "Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to replace the Council. We just want what every species deserves, the right to be free, to grow, to reach our potential without fear." Ryan Morris's console beeped. "Commander, picking up new transmissions. Multiple Council member species are trying to contact us directly. They're requesting private channels." Hayes nodded but kept speaking to her audience. "For too long, the Council ruled through fear. They built walls between species, created artificial divisions, and called it peace. We believe there's a better way." She gestured, and Kate put up images of Earth on all channels. Cities where humans and already friendly alien species worked together, shared technology centers, combined art galleries. This is what Earth looks like today. Different species living together, learning from each other, growing together. Not because anyone forced them to, but because they chose to. Tom Parker smiled at his console. Civilian ships are returning to their ports, Commander. Reading normal traffic patterns resuming. We came here today to deliver a message, Hayes continued. But it's not a message of fear. It's an invitation. An invitation to all species who want something better than rule by fear. Earth's hands are extended in friendship. The responses were immediate. Across the system, ships began broadcasting back. Cheers, messages of support, requests for contact. Species that had been silent council members for generations were finding their voices. And to the council itself, Hayes said, her voice firmer now, Earth remains ready to talk. Not as servants, not as subjects, but as equals. The choice is yours. But know this, the old ways of fear and control are over. They ended today. She signaled Kate to end the broadcast. The bridge crew sat in silence for a moment, feeling the weight of what they had just done. Think they understood? Tom asked quietly. Ryan Morris looked up from his security station. According to these incoming messages, yes, they definitely understood. We're getting requests for diplomatic contact from 27 species already. Make that 28. Hayes smiled and returned to her command chair. The Thunderchild had come here to prevent a war. Instead, it had started a revolution, not with weapons or destruction, but with hope. Send word to Earth, she ordered. Tell them to prepare for guests. I think we're about to have a lot of visitors interested in doing things the human way. The crew grinned at their stations. They had come expecting a fight. Instead, they had achieved something far more powerful. They had given the galaxy a choice. And the galaxy was choosing friendship over fear. Lieutenant Lisa Turner sat in the Thunderchild's Intelligence Center, watching message after message flood her screens. It had been 6 hours since Commander Hayes' broadcast, and the galaxy was changing by the minute. You're going to want to see this, she called out as Hayes entered the room. The smaller council species are doing more than just talking now. They're acting. Hayes leaned over Turner's shoulder, watching the data stream in. Across the galaxy, trade routes were shifting. Military patrols were changing course. Ancient alliances were breaking apart, and new ones were forming. Look at this, Turner pointed to one screen. The Relkin Empire just opened all their technology databases to Earth. The Brel Collective is offering their quantum research. Everyone wants to share now, to prove they're friendly. They're scared we'll shut down their technology too, Tom Parker said as he joined them. But Hayes shook her head. No, this is different. They're not acting from fear anymore. They're acting from hope. She pointed to another screen. See, they're sharing with each other too, not just with us. Doug Wilson burst into the room, his face excited. Commander, you won't believe this. 3 different species just sent us their own versions of the quantum cascade technology. They've had pieces of it for years, but they were too afraid of the Council to develop it. And now? Hayes asked. Now they're offering to work together. With us, with each other. They're talking about joint research projects, shared space stations, combined fleets. Doug could barely contain his excitement. They're thinking like humans now, looking for ways to work together instead of standing alone. Lisa Turner's main screen lit up with a new alert. Commander, incoming transmission from Earth. Priority 1. The screen showed Earth's Defense Command. The room was full of smiling faces. Commander Hayes, Admiral Rogers began. You'll be happy to know we've had to open 6 new diplomatic offices in the past hour. Every species that was afraid to talk to us before is reaching out now. They all want to know how to be more like Earth. Hayes smiled. And what are we telling them? The truth, that Earth's strength doesn't come from weapons or defenses. It comes from working together, from combining different ways of thinking. The Admiral grinned. Though having a ship that can shut down any technology in the galaxy probably helped make our point. New data flashed across Turner's screens. Commander, the Council chamber is almost empty now. Only 3 species are still backing the old leadership. Everyone else has either left to contact Earth or is working on new alliance agreements with each other. Hayes watched the information flow past. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now talking about working together. Old borders were disappearing. New trade routes were being planned. It's like they just needed permission, Tom said quietly. Permission to think differently, to try something new. That's what humans do best, Hayes replied. We show people new ways to think about old problems. Lisa Turner's console beeped again. You're not going to believe this, Commander. Remember those defense grid platforms we shut down? 3 different species are proposing to turn them into a shared research station. They want to study peaceful technology together. Doug laughed. A week ago, they were ready to go to war to protect those platforms. Now they want to turn them into schools. Hayes stood back and watched her crew work. The Thunderchild had come here expecting to prevent a war. Instead, they had sparked a revolution, not through force, but through showing the galaxy a better way. New message from the Relkin Empire, Turner announced. They're asking if Earth would be willing to host a gathering of species, not a council meeting, but a conference on cooperative development. They're calling it the New Dawn Initiative. Hayes smiled. The old council had ruled through fear and separation, but that time was over. A new age was beginning. An age of cooperation, of shared knowledge, of different species working together to solve problems. Send them our answer, she ordered. Tell them Earth would be honored to host the first meeting of the New Dawn. As her crew rushed to send the message, Hayes looked out the window at the stars. The galaxy was changing, becoming something new. And it had all started because one human ship had shown up and offered a better way. The Council's time was ending. Humanity's time was just beginning. And this time, no one would have to stand alone. 3 months after the Thunderchild's historic mission, Commander Rachel Hayes stood at a podium in Earth's new Galactic Cooperation Center. The massive hall was filled with representatives from over 50 alien species. Where the council chamber had been built to show power and create fear, this room was designed for openness and equality. When the Thunderchild left Earth 3 months ago, Hayes began, we thought we were heading into war. Instead, we found something much more valuable. We found hope. In the front row, former Fleet Admiral Beth Cooper sat wearing an Earth Defense uniform. She had returned home, along with many other humans who had served the Council. But now, they served something better. The dream of a united galaxy. Look how far we've come, Hayes continued, gesturing to the hall. 3 months ago, most species were afraid to talk to each other. Now we have 30 joint research stations, 15 combined fleet exercises, and more trade routes than ever before. Tom Parker, sitting nearby, smiled as he checked his tablet. The latest reports showed amazing progress. Species that had once hoarded their knowledge were now sharing it freely. Problems that had seemed impossible were being solved by teams working together. The old council ruled through fear, Hayes said. They built walls between us, told us we had to compete, to fight, to stand alone. But humanity had a different idea. We believed we could be stronger together. In orbit above Earth, the Thunderchild floated among ships from dozens of species. Once, such a gathering would have meant war. Now it meant friendship. The mighty warship had become a symbol not of power, but of positive change. Today, we're not just sharing technology, Hayes continued. We're sharing ideas, dreams, hope. The Relkin and Brel, enemies for 3 centuries, are now working together on clean energy projects. The Zentari, once the most isolated species, are helping build new medical facilities across the galaxy. Doug Wilson, sitting with a group of alien engineers, nodded proudly. His quantum cascade technology, once a weapon, was being adapted to power new ships, heal sick worlds, and connect distant planets. But most importantly, Hayes said, we're sharing our different ways of thinking. Humans don't solve problems like the Relkin. The Brel don't see challenges like the Zentari. And that's good, because when we combine our different views, we find better answers than any of us could find alone. Lisa Turner stood at her security station, but she wasn't looking for threats. Instead, she was tracking the amazing changes happening across the galaxy. Old enemies becoming friends, closed borders opening up, a new age of cooperation spreading like starlight through the darkness. The Thunderchild showed that one ship could shut down the mightiest defense grid ever built, Hayes said. But that's not what made history. What made history was what came after, when we all decided to stop building walls and start building bridges. In the hall, aliens who once would have fought each other now sat together, planned together, dreamed together. The fear that had ruled the galaxy for so long was gone, replaced by something stronger, hope. Today, we're not just making history, Hayes concluded. We're making the future, a future where no species stands alone, where we face our challenges together, where we grow stronger by working together, not fighting each other. The hall erupted in cheers, human voices mixing with alien sounds in a chorus of joy and hope. As Hayes stepped down from the podium, Beth Cooper met her with a smile. "You know," Cooper said, "when I served the council, I thought I was helping keep the peace. But this is real peace." Hayes nodded, watching the celebration around them. "The council thought humanity would destroy their system," she said. "They were right, but not in the way they expected. We destroyed their system of fear and control by showing there was a better way." Above them, the Thunderchild continued its orbit, no longer a threat but a promise that the galaxy could be better, that different species could work together, that fear could be replaced with friendship. The age of the council was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it had all started because one human ship had shown up and offered the galaxy a choice, and the galaxy had chosen hope.